In 1773, colonists dressed as Mohawk Indians dumped tea from the British East India Company into the Boston Harbor. In 1767, British Parliament created the Townsend Revenue Act. This forced the colonies to pay a tax on glass, oil, paint, lead, paper, and tea that came from Britain. The purpose of the Townsend Acts was to raise money in the colonies to pay for the salaries of governors and judges so that they would remain loyal to Great Britain. Merchants in the colonies organized the first non-importation agreement, which asked the merchants to stop buying and selling British glass, paint, oil, lead, paper, and tea. But the non-importation movement was not as effective as they had hoped. The colonists tried to not buy products from Britain, but the people loved their tea. Most all the tea from Britain was sold by the East India Company. They shipped the tea to Britain from China and paid a tax on the tea. Then they shipped the tea to the colonies and it was taxed again. This made their tea very expensive. So smugglers would ship tea directly from other countries like Holland. They would sneak them into port by hiding the tea in rolls of silk or sailcloth. This made the smuggled Dutch tea much cheaper. On March 5th, 1770, Parliament stopped taxing 4 of the 5 items that had been taxed, but the tax on tea remained. In the spring of 1773, the East India Company had a large amount of extra tea on hand to help the failing company. British Parliament authorized the Tea Act on May 10th. This act said that the tea sold by the East India Company would not be taxed in Britain, only taxed when it reached the colonies. This made the colonies furious. Even though it made the tea much cheaper, the Tea Act was a government bailout for the East India Company, which in modern times, too big to fail. It also made them angry because the tax on tea was still in place, and the colonists who had no seats in Parliament could not do anything about it. This was taxation without representation. So, on Sunday, November 28, 1773, when the Dartmouth, a ship carrying 114 chests of tea, arrives at Boston Harbor, a meeting is called at Faneuil Hall. When the crowd goes too big, they move to the Old South Meeting House. The crowd demands that the tea be returned to England without the tax being paid. Governor Hutchin refused to let Dartmouth return. 2 other ships, the Beaver and the Eleanor, arrived in Boston carrying tea. On December 16th, the last day of Dartmouth's deadline to pay its tax, nearly 7,000 people had gathered around the Old South Meeting House. Samuel Adams tried to get control of the meeting, but some people started leaving the Old South Meeting House to take action. In this meeting, there were members of the Sons of Liberty. The Sons of Liberty was an organization that was created in the American colonies. The secret society was formed to protect the rights and colonists and fight taxation by the British government. Members of the Sons of Liberty, dressed as Mohawk Indians, boarded the 3 ships and started throwing 342 chests of tea into the Boston Harbor. This was enough to fill almost 13 million of these. While disguising their faces was important, dressing as Mohawk warriors was a symbol. It showed that the Sons of Liberty identified with America instead of subjects of Great Britain. When news of the Boston Tea Party reached London in January, Parliament created a series of acts known in the colonies as the Intolerable Acts. These acts were meant to punish Boston for dumping the tea. and to keep British rule in Massachusetts. Colonists saw the Intolerable Acts as a violation of their rights. This caused the creation of the First Continental Congress in September 1774. The Boston Tea Party was not called the Boston Tea Party until it appeared in print in 1834. John Adams and many other Americans considered tea drinking to be unpatriotic after the Boston Tea Party. Tea drinking went down and Americans moved to coffee as the favorite hot drink. Be a patriot! Drink coffee! I hope you have enjoyed these facts about the Boston Tea Party. Click over here to see the playlist of all the other videos in this series. Click over here to subscribe. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Hey, also, I wanted to give you guys a tip. Remember, don't drink your tea. And also, I wanted to mention that we are having a shout out to Jonathan and Samuel for subscribing. Thank you, Jonathan and Samuel.